No, it isn't. Goodbye, thanks for watching. No, of course, you know it's not that simple. I hate it when people throw around the W word on YouTube. Is this worth it? Is it worth it to upgrade? Is it worth it to buy this new Apple Watch? Or worth it to buy these new AirPods? It all depends on the situation, but that, of course, is why this is not a yes or no question. Answering the question in today's title does take some context and some looking back at history through other Apple Watch upgrades in order to find what the answer truly is, which is incredibly dependent on the person. So, without further ado, let's begin. A lot of people were commenting on the Apple Watch Series 5 yesterday. They were saying that it was completely unnecessary, a very, very small upgrade, and I even saw some people say that they should have gone as far as not release it at all. Or if they did release it, don't put it under Series 5 branding. Don't give it the full number. Upgrade, which I'll admit, before the Apple Watch actually came out, I was on that boat too. I was like, given there's not really that much they can do, I say they just update some new finishes and call it a day. Don't change anything about the Series 4. It's such a great selling watch. It's such a beautiful smartwatch with so many great health and fitness features that you don't really need to do anything with it other than just make it cheaper. But luckily, a ton of our rumors and leaks were completely wrong, where I thought the biggest selling point of the Series 5 was going to be that it has sleep tracking now. Actually, they didn't do that at all, so that was complete BS. When I say BS YouTube, I'm referring to bologna sandwiches. Please don't demonetize me. But actually, what they added was something very, very heavily requested, which was an always-on display. They also implemented a compass, which was far less requested. I don't think there were a lot of people asking for that. I think when they added the compass to the Series 5, most people's reaction was there not a compass before? Why didn't it have a compass? Oh, okay, I guess it has a compass now. I just don't understand the purpose of needing to know what direction north is if you have a smartwatch. You know, if you have a smartwatch, why don't you just use the GPS that's built in for that reason? I don't know. But the always-on display was definitely something people have been asking for ever since the original Apple Watch. A lot of people criticized it for saying that other smartwatches out there have the ability to stay on even when you don't tilt your wrist in the right way, and Apple was falling behind because their watch didn't do that. Now, obviously, the Apple Watch became the #1 watch in the world, by far one of the most popular watches out there, definitely the most popular smartwatch, dominating the market without having an always-on display. So Apple now adding it in 2019 with the Series 5 at no additional cost. You know, the Series 5 is the same price as the Series 4 was. It's just kind of another nail in the coffin. I won't even say the final nail, because next year we'll probably get the Series 6, and then after that the Series 7, and they're just going to make the Apple Watch even better than it already is and continue to dominate the smartwatch market. But now that they've given so many criticizers one less thing to complain about with the Apple Watch, I think the always-on display is actually a bigger upgrade than people are making it out to be. Not because I care about the always-on display and I want an always-on display. Before you go back and claim hypocrisy and say, Drew, in the past you said you don't want an always-on display. You like your screen staying off. And that is still true. For the most part, I do prefer my Apple Watch screen turning all the way off to preserve battery life, and also I just don't like the idea that it's wasting battery when I'm not looking at it. However, ever since they launched always on display, I have been noticing like times in the day where I could just look at my watch without turning the wrist and being like, hey, what if I could see what time it was without having to gesture that motion? It's not something that's going to be worth upgrading over. I am going to review the Series 5, but I'm not going to keep it because I'm still incredibly happy with my Series 4, and I think the differences are far and few between. But I think the main reason so many people out there think the Series 5 was unnecessary or it didn't need to happen was because we're just coming off of the Series 4, which was the biggest upgrade the Apple Watch has ever seen. Between extreme redesign, extreme health features that have never been seen in any product, let alone a smartwatch before, now that people could take ECGs and the screen-to-body ratio was improved so much, everyone saw that Series 4 and thought, oh my god, this is an amazing upgrade. I'm so glad Apple did this. But if you go back through time, you'll realize that most Apple Watch upgrades were actually quite small. The Series 4 was the biggest one, and that was the most recent one, so it's very clear in everyone's mind what kind of giant Apple Watch upgrades we're used to. But let's take a trip down memory lane a little bit and remember what the Series 3 was just a year before the 4 came out. The biggest addition was the fact that it added cellular support. You could now use it away from your iPhone, but keep in mind, this was an optional feature. This is something that wasn't available on every single Series 3. You had to pay extra to access that feature, and I gotta be honest, when I see Apple Watches in public and stuff, a lot of them don't have that red dot on the digital crown, or that red ring if you're on the Series 4, which means that a lot of people were very much comfortable with just buying a new Apple Watch and not getting cellular because they know their phone is on them most of the time. And while I was really excited for cellular when it first came out, and if you can recall way back, I did a review video on the cellular capabilities of the Series 3, I thought it was cool. It was kind of nice that I didn't have to take my iPhone with me. It provided options out there for people who like to work out and not carry around their smartphone, but at the end of the day, it was still optional. It wasn't something that affected every single Apple Watch. And aside from, you know, the CPU boost and cellular support, there wasn't really much else. There were some tiny things, like they made the speaker a little bit louder so that Siri can actually talk out of it. Whether or not that makes a big difference in day-to-day use, I guess it's up to the end user, but Series 3, I'm not saying is as big as the Series 5, it's just definitely a lot smaller. But if you go back a little bit further, let's look at how big of an upgrade the Series 2 was from the original Series 0 Apple Watch. Well, the biggest thing was water resistance. You could now swim with it, take it in the shower if you want to, I don't care, or even go scuba diving as long as you stayed above 50 meters, which was really impressive. But you know what most people said about the Series 2 when it got water resistance? Why didn't it have it in the first place? And that's how I see a lot of people responding with the Series 5. Always on display, yeah, it's about time. Why didn't they add that a few years ago? Either way, it's a useful feature. It provides the option out there for those who want it, and at no additional cost. So as big as a feature as we all say cellular is, because now you can take the Apple Watch away from the iPhone, I still think it's incredibly common that most people don't even take advantage of the cellular support on the Apple Watch. I know you're out there. I'm not saying you don't exist. I'm just saying it's not a small niche of the market that chooses GPS only. A lot of people buy Apple Watches and they just need the cheapest one they can get, but still consider it new. And by that means, the Series 3 was a pretty minor upgrade. The biggest change was CPU got a little bit faster, which on a watch makes very little difference. Unless John Morrison's gonna edit his next video on an Apple Watch. Keep us posted on that one, John. And the other big feature was that Siri could talk out of the speaker now. And that was an entire number upgrade. So what I'm just trying to say in today's video is that Series 4 was definitely a super cycle, the biggest upgrade we've ever seen. And the more perfected a design gets, the more features you add to a device, the harder it is to top that. How do you top the best-selling watch in the world? How do you top the smartwatch, which has all of the best features you can find in one? Well, you start looking at what people are asking for, and in this case, it was always on display. They added it to the Series 5, and there's definitely a market for people out there who want to check it out. And like I mentioned before, this affects every single Apple Watch. It's not an option that you get to pay extra for. Okay, for an extra $100 or an extra $50, you can have an always on display. No, this affects all of them. Can't really say that about the Series 3 features. So while cellular may have been a very big selling point to a lot of customers out there, I think the same argument can be made that always on display was a big reason to upgrade for a lot of people out there who really wanted to have an Apple Watch that they didn't have to worry about tilting it the wrong way. Now they can look at the watch in any circumstance and tell what time it is. And while that is not a huge selling factor for me, and probably not a huge selling factor for all Series 4 owners, I feel like that's another big misconception I've been seeing out there, is that when you see the Series 5 upgrade, you assume that everyone else on the market has the Series 4 already. That's not true. There's still a bunch of people out there rocking their Series 3, Series 2, and earlier. I've talked with several people recently that are still rocking the original Apple Watch, and for them, an upgrade like this is totally helpful. They got to wait a year after the 4 came out and now get even more features at no additional cost because it's the same price as the 4. Plus, while Apple is no longer selling the Series 4, I'm sure via Best Buy or Amazon or Black Friday sales, you'll be able to find the Series 4 for cheaper than it was from Apple. So while you may think the Series 5 wasn't worth it or Series 5 shouldn't have happened in the first place, for a lot of customers out there, it's definitely going to be worth it. It's going to be a decent upgrade. And for the sake of Apple progressing and making the Apple Watch better and trying to add what people are most asking for, then sure, while the Series 5 doesn't feel like as great as an upgrade as the Series 4 was, it's still somewhat necessary. So that's why I say sure, the Series 5 was worth it for Apple, and for the people out there who haven't bought a Series 4 yet, hang on to their watches for a few more years. But I think after I review mine, I'll be returning it and then sticking with my Series 4 because it's still doing fine, and honestly, always on display isn't really a big feature to me. But I am not everybody. I like to acknowledge that on YouTube because some YouTubers don't. Sometimes they like to acknowledge their individual use case and apply that to everyone, and if you disagree with it, then you're wrong. But if you'd like to talk more about this, please hit me up on Twitter or Discord and we can continue the conversation there. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.